Hello there. Welcome back to the podcast. Excited for another episode here and excited to introduce you to our guest today. Somebody who has been with the company, been with our transition into Sotheby's International Realty from the beginning, literally just a couple weeks before we launched as Atlantic Shore Sotheby's International Realty. This gentleman joined us, leap of faith, decided to come over from another company and really felt the vibes with Sotheby's International Realty, and we're excited to have him. So want to introduce everybody here to Philip Knight, who is now actually one of our veteran agents within the company here. And just introduce you guys to him. He's had some great success. Want to tell his story a little bit, let him tell you his story. So welcome, Philip.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah, no. It's exciting to get you on here. We've been trying for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Trying to get you here, and you've been busy.
Busy.
Yeah, busy. And then actually you did a little traveling too, which is cool, right?
A little traveling, some business, then some travel, and now back to business.
Well, I think you and I were talking yesterday, and it's in real estate, it's bound to happen. But if you are slow, and you weren't slow, but if anybody is slow, go out of town, right?
Go away. Yeah.
Go on vacation, and it's bound that the business will find you, and your phone will start lighting up.
Yes. It's the age old, we want what we can't have. So when we're away, the phone starts to ring. So
right.
Luckily, support of the brokerage was able to, I wrote a contract right before I left and had one of our other agents showing, I think he showed 5 properties for me while I was away.
That's awesome.
Crucial. Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't really skip a beat there.
Didn't miss out too much.
And then coming back, I mean, I was excited to have a conversation with you yesterday, first day back in the office, and you've got some spring market activity upon you. You get a couple listings coming on.
Yeah, some good ones coming up. Very excited about. I want to get back into the swing, open houses, and now that the weather is breaking a little bit, right. It's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately we've had a mild winter, but it definitely seems like we've had a little pickup here, and I'm hoping that we're going to have a pretty good spring market. But so 68,000 people here in our database going to see this podcast. Let's let them know, who is Philip Knight. Tell us a little bit more about maybe your history, where you're from, how you got into business.
Sure. So I was born in Wilmington, Delaware. Since birth, my grandparents owned a place in Fenwick Island, which is actually Selbyville. But as we all know, the lines get convoluted
West
around
Fenwick.
here. Yes,
right.
West Fenwick, on the water in Selbyville, right by Harp and Hannah's. So I had the luxury of being a city boy with the beach in the summer. So since birth, would come down here, spend the entire summer with them. As soon as I was 14, working summer jobs, and once you get to a certain age, why go back to north,
right,
when we have this beautiful beach? So made the transition to become a full-time agent. A full-time resident. That was about 20 years ago at this point. Lived all over, lived in Berlin, lived in Ocean City, met my beautiful wife in Ocean City. We lived in a condo there for maybe 2 years, and then decided that we were going to buy a house together. And now we moved back to Frankfurt, which is also West Fenwick, if you...
Right. Absolutely. So living in Frankfurt, so you're in Delaware.
Delaware, right across the line. Takes me about 10 minutes to get to the office on 75th Street. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a perfect scenario. You get a little bit of the mentality that when you leave Ocean City, you're kind of at a home. Whereas when we were here, we loved it, but you're part of the ongoing party, right? So it's nice to be close, but not in it.
Little separation.
Mm-hmm.
Little normalcy at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Now, if you're just getting a condo here and you're just spending summers, or it's all means Ocean City's awesome. Full time, got to have a yard for the dog, all that stuff, and
right.
Things like that in Ocean City become expensive.
Right. It's that natural transition. You start looking, when you get to that point where you're going to buy your first house, it's like, where are you going to go? That makes sense. It's affordable, but close to everything.
Very close.
Yeah.
And honestly, best thing that we ever did, because the equity has just shot through the roof in Sussex County. So we're sitting pretty.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, very similar story. We hear a similar, tale from a lot of folks who've either continued to stick around in the area from someplace else originally, and or have stuck around in the area and gotten into real estate. So let me ask you, prior to getting into real estate, those 17, 16 years, what were you doing in Ocean City?
So for years, I was a musician, and I would do weekly gigs. I was in a band as well, and a solo musician. So for 3 or 4 gigs a week during the summertime. I also helped my buddy who owns 48th Street Water Sports and 67th Street Paddle Cove, which are 2 places where you can rent kayaks and paddle boards and do the bay activities.
Yep.
So I ran those in the summer because it worked perfectly with my nighttime guitar schedule, band schedule. And then in the off season, for years, I worked for a company called Whether or Not, which is kind of how I transitioned into real estate. We did the exterior maintenance, if you will, of the Sea Colony was our main job.
Got it.
So we'd be riding the big rigs up and resurfacing the exterior of the building. And it was great because I learned stuff with my hands. I'm a city boy. I never even knew how to change my oil or anything like that. So I learned a lot of stuff from there. But I kept seeing all these guys in, suits, and I'm out there freezing on the side of the building. What are these guys doing? Oh, they're selling real estate. Yeah. So I started to, maybe that's the way to go. And, we had some life changes happen with health issues, and it was kind of like, all right, let's hang up the guitar, even though I still play and love it.
Right.
The money wasn't adequate for taking care of business, so to speak. So I made the transition into real estate. And actually, one of my friends just came to me one day and said, why don't you be a realtor? It's like, you're popular, everyone. And I said, yeah, let me try. And ended up being a pretty easy transition from the bar scene, knowing people, talking to people, to, hey, now I'm just talking to people. It's just a different subject.
Right. I mean, yeah, when you're 4 days a week, for years in the restaurants, the bars, I imagine you not only meet the employees in those places and the owners of those establishments, but then you meet a lot of the homeowners, right? The second homeowners that and you it's interesting to think about, but when you're in those roles, whether it's your favorite bartender at the spot you go to on vacation or the person who's playing music, like you're adding to their perception of this paradise vacation spot. So you get a little following, I would imagine, and
absolutely,
it's kind of cool.
It worked well to transition. I don't play music out anymore. I mean, I just don't have the time, and
right.
We're doing a lot in real estate, so that takes up pretty much all my days and all my nights. But I did meet a lot of people, and at one point I had like the double-sided business card. It was like, I can sell you a house and I'll play guitar at your closing party.
Right.
Which, worked for about a year, and then I started to do not too much, but do a lot of real estate business, and just kind of, actually when COVID hit, that was like, okay, now the excuse.
Right.
Because the age-old excuse was always like, well, you can do it, so why wouldn't you? So I used that as, well, now I can't because everything's closed. But it was kind of a good thing because it made me say, all right, real estate full-time, and I really saw improvement in my numbers and everything else, just taking that out of the equation, the mental space.
Yeah.
But I did meet a lot of good people.
I would imagine. I mean, and that's one of the first things we always tell our agents to do when they first get into business is like, that sphere of influence list, right?
Sure.
Put down, everybody and after, what I have found is the agents that have joined us over the years that have a little bit deeper roots, or they've been in the bar industry, they've been a teacher, they've been a musician, and they've done that for a number of years here in the community, have a little bit, I'm not going to say easier because it's certainly not easy, but they might have an advantage as far as knowing some people right out of the gates. We
have the sphere, as we call it, a little bit built up already. It's like, hey, I'm now just reaching out to you for a different reason,
Yeah. So, and then as we transition into real estate, right? So you did almost 20 years as a musician throughout town, and you start to kind of get the itch to get into real estate. You do so. You're not obviously, but you didn't start with our company. You started with another company locally here for about a year, and you had some pretty good success there too.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, like we said, just based off of what, the sphere and all that, but the support wasn't there. So that was like and then when we met, this was when it was just Atlantic Shores. So talk about like joining at a good time, because I really lean heavily on the Sotheby's name. I mean, I love the fact that that's on my shirt.
Right.
And I think it does help, at least like when you meet a person for the first time. Sotheby's has a standard, I feel. And the other place just really didn't give off that same. You kind of have to show and prove a little bit more, whereas Sotheby's is like, hey, I work for a great company, and here's what we do.
Right.
So yeah, the transition coming over is needed, and I'm so glad that I did it.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're here, and we just passed the 3-year mark. I think your anniversary was like early February. It really is crazy when we look back at how much in the entire world has changed in 3 years.
Nuts, right?
But then obviously your transition there. So I remember you coming over. I remember you had a pretty good baseline as far as like your contract knowledge. You could write contracts. You were starting to pick up a few listings. But then you came over and you mentioned a second ago, which I'll get into in a minute, but just in general, you were able to run with opportunities pretty quickly. Any opportunities that we had from the company, you seemed to be able to take those opportunities, take those clients, take them out and get them to trust you, which is super important, and ultimately help them find the right property pretty quickly.
I mean, I think a lot of it is the fact of being here for so long and just knowing, hey, if you like this, maybe let's check this place, and giving good advice. Whereas if you're just here and you're a summer local for a few years, you don't have the insight that somebody has living here year round for multiple years. So I felt like that was, led to a little bit of my success, like we said before, just having that sphere already built in. But learning the contracts, that was like you do that first and then go out. And I think I already had a little bit of the confidence of, just from playing music, I can pretty much talk to anybody.
Right.
The nerves weren't there, that I'm sure some new agents might be a little nervous. I don't know the contract 100%, but I'm meeting people, So I definitely made sure I knew the contract first. And then I started to, be a lot easier to go out with people, do my thing where I talk face to face, but also go home and write a really solid contract and give advice that, now I look back and, there's been a lot of advice given over the years. And when you think about it, it's like, oh, wow, this person's in this house and I had a role in that. It's kind of a special feeling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then the other thing we're seeing is that you've now have business coming back to you. So not only did you help them with the first one, you're now helping them either buy an investment property or they're making a move to the second one. So you're seeing some of that business kind of start to snowball a little bit.
That's like the affirmation, right? That you're doing a pretty good job if your clients come back to you. And this year I've seen more return business. I mean, I think majority of what I have going on right now are people that I've either been working with for over a year and they kind of missed the boat during the COVID crazies, as I call it, or they bought and they want round two.
Right.
We bought this investment, we want another investment. A lot of the same building. We bought in this building, we want two in that building.
What about the transition from folks that, and I think we see this a lot in Delaware, at least I've noticed it over the years, where somebody buys the first vacation home, but then they like it so much that they actually want to move here.
Yeah.
So you seen some of that?
I think that's like one of my number one customers, right? Or either like, I call them the transition people, where they're not necessarily selling their home in Westminster or wherever, but they're going to keep that by the Sussex County beach house and then transition over within 5 years. I think that's my number one client right now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you got to take advantage of the taxes here. We've seen just the influx from all the metropolitan areas on the East Coast. They all want to come here, and because very cheap to live in Delaware.
Right.
There's other benefits as far as like the pension and things like that. So yeah, I think that's a lot of our clientele is Like either we came and we bought the beach house, now we're going to sell the beach house and get the big house, or hey, we want to be in a single family home and within 5 years we're going to sell our primary and this will be our new primary here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that too. It's a lot of people who I think they're and they're not necessarily selling the first beach house. You know, I see them. They buy a beach house. They're in it for 5 years. Yeah, I know. We would love to get some more inventory here, right. But they're not. You know, they're. And that's a whole nother dynamic, which we can talk about in a minute here, you know, the overall market. But what I'm seeing is a lot of them have started, they bought the beach home, the vacation condo, and they're like, you know what, we want that primary. We want to transition down here. Let's go do that. And then they think it's totally awesome to have, you know, a house inland 5 miles and then be able to run over to their beach house, you know, on the weekend. And it's like a 20-minute drive to the second home.
So I have that exact client right now. They've just bought the single family home next door to my mom. Which is, talk about a small world. You know, my mom lives here, and they went, this is my, you know, next door to my mom. And now I said, well, when she calls me to like open the ketchup bottle, I'm calling you. Yeah,
there you go. Deflected onto them.
Yeah, but they did the same thing. So they sold a place in Ocean City, a condo. They bought another condo in Ocean City, and then now they've retired, moved inland in Delaware, bought a single family home. And I said, oh, you know, let's talk about selling the Ocean City. No, we're going to rent it out, which is great.
Right.
You know, you can have property here. You can make it pay for itself. You know, that's the age old, you know, have a free vacation, you know, or, you know, maybe string a couple properties together and actually start putting some money in your pocket.
Right.
So there's not many areas like this, right, where you can come in and still get a nice beach place for under $300 and have it pay for itself.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the entire East Coast and you just start in Maine and you start working your way down and you look at the different areas and look at the home values and what you can do with them, and then you look at your like metropolitan area that in the distance that they have to get to you.
Sure.
I mean, Ocean City still presents a great value, even with the the prices going up.
Yeah.
As much as Ocean City and the Delaware beaches.
Yeah, I mean nationwide, right?
Right.
I mean, a lot of it, my opinion is like kind of consolidation on like, my God, 5 years ago it was, you could get Ocean Block for in the twos, but that doesn't compute like with the rest of the country. Like where else can you get that? And our beach is amazing, so I feel like it's kind of like what it should be.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, even
for the locals.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I mean, because they get their mindset, they remember what it was. But honestly, we're in a very interesting dynamic right now of home values and supply and demand and interest rates.
And the cat's out of the bag with Ocean City. You know, I know you've been here a while, but when we were growing up, it wasn't on everyone's radar. You know, you'd go to New Jersey and go to the, Atlantic City and Ocean City, New Jersey. And I have a theory that it was like after Sandy happened, a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of Jersey came to our beach for the first time. And it was like, wow, like restaurant on every block, bar on every block, free parking.
Free beaches. No beach tags, right?
Meanwhile, you go to some of these towns, and at least me being from here, I feel like, when does the nickel and diming end? And Ocean City's not like that.
Yeah.
So you come here once and then you realize, I can own property here for relatively inexpensive compared to these other, even talk about Jersey, compared to Ocean City. A lot of people coming over and my dad owns a condo in Ventnor.
Yeah.
And he can't believe when I say, this place is this much. What? This is our taxes. What? So, yeah, it's a good area.
No, it certainly is, and I think one of the reasons too that our values are, I don't want to say they're definitely more affordable in our spots, but we're very compartmentalized. I mean, you can own a little piece of the beach, in the condo type of ownership, that allows you to have a great view and be very close to the beach or close to the water, great sunsets for not a whole lot of money.
Right.
Where a lot of these other towns, then you're dealing with more. You own a single family home or you own a townhome, and then that price just goes so
or
up.
your taxes are $15,000 a year.
Right. All right. So before we deep dive too much into the market, I just want to kind of go through and kind of acknowledge some of your accomplishments over the course of the last 3 years. I mean, when you first started with us to where you are today, you've almost doubled your average sales price, which is huge. You've had a 64% increase as far as the number of transactions that you had with the previous company to where you're at today. You're another thing that's interesting is we're seeing a transition with the clientele you're working with. So, obviously in the beginning, you relied on us to give you lots of opportunities, lots of leads, and now you're really starting to build more of a sphere of influence-based business, a know, like, and trust you business, people who already know you, and that's the transition that all real estate agents kind of want to do at some point, right? Get their business going. So with that, you mentioned earlier, the power of Sotheby's International Realty and what that has done to you and in your business. And I have to admit, I think probably since we've transitioned over, you're probably the one agent that has embraced the brand the most and is utilizing, the power of the brand to propel your business. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Love the Sotheby's name. It's synonymous with luxury. When people hear it, they immediately, it's like, okay, he must be a pretty good agent if he's joined this brokerage. My wife's uncle is a Sotheby's agent, so that's also led to some of my successes. The referral network of Sotheby's. Right. I have an agent in Jamaica looking for property for me. I have an agent in Florida that I send referrals to. So what I've done is gone on all the Sotheby's websites and found somebody in every city. Oh, you're moving here, we can help you. Right. So that's one. Two is I've actually had people say, oh, this is Sotheby's house. This must be a nice place. Right. Just by having that sign out front, it kind of puts you ahead of some of the other signs, I would say. So I love leaning on that, just knowing that it's luxury brand, it's a trusted name, people know it. And honestly, it just makes me proud. Like, I love that logo. Mm-hmm. The logo means so much more than a logo, but just people recognize it. I sold a place to somebody in China, called the office, did the exchange rate on the website because Sotheby's has the exchange rate already right there. A lot of the different countries' exchange rates. And they actually bought the house over the internet. And I met them in person. They came, but it was on settlement day. Right. So like stuff like that, I feel happens so much more with this brand. Right. Where people just like know, okay, I'm getting a sound property because these guys wouldn't be messing with it if it wasn't. Not that we only sell fancy places. We can sell anything. But it definitely, it takes a little bit of the conversation out on, hey, let me prove to you what I do and who I am, and here's my track record. I don't have to do that as much. I just say, hi, I'm Sotheby's, and nice to meet you. And trust is there. Trust. Mm-hmm. That's a big piece of it. It's a recognizable brand. In our industry, because our industry is great, and it's full of all these awesome people. But then we have that, like, car salesman-y, like, cloak that it's like, we're not like that at all. And the further I can get away from that mentality, the better. And I think Sotheby's was like the bridge to get out of that, mentality. No one's thinking that we're used car salesmen. Right. We're selling fine properties all over the world.
No, you hit on a few great points there, which makes me proud because it's also what I was drawn to. Sotheby's itself is like you said, it's synonymous. It's associated with. You don't have to say it. You don't have to say luxury. Like a lot, unfortunately, There's a lot of other brands out there that love to throw this luxury piece on there.
Absolutely.
When you put a Sotheby's sign in the yard, it stands for something,
Mm-hmm.
it's you don't have to say it,
right?
Which is what I love. The other piece that I think is extremely interesting too is when we talk about brands, and building a brand. The Sotheby's brand has been around, and associated with auctioning off the world's greatest artwork, the greatest collectibles. We were just talking about guitars a little bit ago, and it's known to be associated with the finest,
Yes.
most unique things in the world.
Not only real estate.
Right.
And that's also, I didn't touch on that, but like every day I go on the Sotheby's website and see what they're auctioning off, and they sneakers,
right?
Like everything. So it's just cool that you're part of this, even though we're the real estate side of it. But the fact that it's like our same kind of shell of the company is doing art sales, antiquities, all over the world. It's pretty cool.
It is. And you said the referral network. I mean, right now, I think when we joined, there was 72 different countries. I think they're in 80 countries now, about 25,000 sales associates, like 1,100 offices worldwide. I mean, almost any spot in the United States is covered, and internationally is pretty well marked as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've sent referrals to Mexico. It's very easy to just Google and then find the Sotheby's office, and there's 9 times out of 10 there's one there.
Yeah.
If it's a good area, there's a Sotheby's.
Especially destinations like unique towns, beach
Overseas,
towns.
You always see it, right? We just got back from Jamaica, and there's I work with her name's Gail, and she sells the resorts there. So she's sells really beautiful properties to like Sandals will come in and buy.
Wow.
Yeah. But she's Sotheby's, and she has a referral network in New York. So she does the same thing that we do here, and she's based in Jamaica, and real estate's a little different there, but she crushes it. And I think part of it is the Sotheby's,
the brand,
because there's not a lot of brokerages there, and it's very, who do you know? Oh, I know them. So there's that listing. It's not like the MLS where you can just go on and see all the listings.
Yeah.
But she does well, and I know that she sends referrals to the U.S. as well, and to me, if somebody were to move to Ocean City from Jamaica.
Right. Well, it might. I mean, that can go both ways. But she could be talking to somebody who knows Ocean City, and then like, hey, my guy Phil. We go, in Costa Rica, Nosara. There was always Costa Rica Sotheby's, which was kind of the whole country, but one of our favorite little niche boutique offices, which was just an independent called Wonderlust, actually just folded into the Sotheby's brand.
Oh, cool.
And now it's Wonderlust Costa Rica Sotheby's International Realty, and it's just, I love looking at their properties, and it's pretty cool to have that presence.
Absolutely.
So all right, so you've really embraced the brand. One more thing with that, this is something I see too with with some of the other companies out there. You mentioned the logo, and they call it the logo lockup. And you can't mess with that logo. It's I think it's 282 blue, and it's the exact font, and it has to look that way.
Conformity.
Right. But it's also recognizable. Right. The signs, no matter what market you're in, look exactly the same. Right.
Business card.
Right.
Hawaii agent, Ocean City agent.
Right.
Identical.
Where with a lot of other companies, we see this, you kind of run. I run a lot, obviously, and I run past signs, and sometimes I have to scratch my head. I'm like, what company is that? It's not as recognizable.
Right.
And we're trying to build that trust right out of the gate, and they recognize it. I think that has value too.
Absolutely has value. I mean, even being a real estate agent, when I see a sign that I'm like, well, what brokerage is that? And it kind of already puts that mentality in my head that, okay, maybe they're one of these discount brokerages, or I don't know that agent. What's their track record? That kind of thing. Whereas, I see one of our signs, even if it's elsewhere, I know they're kind of dealing with the same thing that we deal with, as far as you have to be this, that, and the other. You have to have all your ducks in a row. The logo has to be the same. The signs have to be the same. The business card has to be the same. Right. And they're not necessarily going to hire anybody off the street to be a Sotheby's agent. And I feel like it's kind of a nice little, I don't want to say hierarchy, but I feel that way mentally.
Right. And then you also mentioned too, obviously in the greater Ocean City area, and we have prices that are, a couple of years ago we had condos you could buy for $55,000. That's not the case anymore. But outside the area, there's still, entry level pricing, and we love to represent those homes, and we also represent multi-million-dollar homes. But you kind of hinted at it. It's almost like the luxury piece with Sotheby's International Realty is not necessarily about a price point. It's yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bring that mentality. Even if you're, something under 200, you're going to get that same service. I have no price point in my mind that I'm like, oh, I need to be better for this person. And I treat everybody the same, but it makes it so much easier when you do a big property, knowing that you have this brand behind you. But it's for somebody that wants a $300,000 place in Selbyville, Delaware. We're going to give you the same exact service, and it just goes hand in hand across any of the properties that we deal with. And I appreciate that as well, because that's also kind of how I got into real estate, was buying a house,
right?
And like learning the process, and just knowing that, okay, I'm going to get walked through this by somebody who is good at their job. It's worth its weight in gold. Absolutely.
Very good. Very good. So let's transition. So Sotheby's, we both agree, is a great brand.
Yeah, we could talk all week long about
but we can help you sell your home, right? With using the power of Sotheby's International Realty to help you buy a home. But let's transition a little bit, because obviously, we started the conversation talking about the last 3 years and the transition we've seen, and obviously prices have risen here. Inventory was low when 3 years ago, and now it's almost non-existent. I mean, what are you seeing? Because you're out on the streets every single day, but helping both buyers and sellers. What are you seeing in the marketplace right now? What's working?
What's working is, what's good for buyers is that, during the COVID crazies, you couldn't do an inspection. Or, I mean, you could, but you would lose. You would lose because of an appraisal. So you're waiving all these things that make you feel good at night, And now the fact that is back, and there's a little bit more negotiating. It really depends on where you are. If you're in Ocean City and you're looking at a 2-bedroom condo, you might still have some competition. But the single family homes across in Delaware, and even in around Ocean Pines, the inventory is still low, but the buyers seem to have a little bit more power to do the things that you should be doing. A home inspection will make sure you're buying a sound property. So that's the good thing that's back. There's still some competition, but there's a little bit more negotiating power for the buyers. On the seller side, great time to sell your property still. There's still tons of buyers out there. People are starting to smell the suntan lotion coming back in this area. Right. So once that happens, I mean, we usually have a spring selling season. So I feel like the sellers, you're still getting top dollar, but the buyers, you can negotiate a little bit on your behalf to get the price kind of where you want it. Do your home inspection, do your appraisal, make sure everything. And actually, maybe 2 weeks ago, we negotiated, I think it was like $5,000 in repairs.
Wow.
Home inspection.
Yeah.
And it's like, that, wouldn't happen last year or a year and a half ago. So it's interesting. Every day is a school day. I will say that.
Right.
And it's different in Sussex County. I feel like there's more opportunity to get the single family homes because Delaware's building so much. But as we get closer to spring in Ocean City, I think we'll see some more properties come on the market. I have 2 coming next week. I'm sure a lot of agents are doing the same thing. Hey, spring's coming. Right. Time to list your home. But there is that pent-up buyer demand too, that people that couldn't get the property in the last 2 years because they're getting outbid. So I feel like if you're one of those people, now's the time. Come back in while people are still kind of, we're waiting for spring. You got to get that property now before the buyer competition comes back.
Right.
On the seller side, if you're in Ocean City, you could still be dealing with a multiple offer situation. Are you going to get the phone call that I got from China where the guy paid cash over the phone? Maybe not as much, but it's still a lot of attraction to this area. And people that, if you're retiring this year, you're not waiting 2 years to buy a place. You're coming.
Right.
The age, I'm getting a lot of people that are doing the different loan products, the 10-year ARMs, solely relying that I'm going to refinance out of this in a year anyway. So right now I feel like it's more about getting the property. Don't worry about we always say, date the rate, marry the house. And it's true though, because now you can actually choose where you want to be a little bit easier, and then refinance out of that rate down the road.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are thinking that same thing. They think that rates will certainly change, and I have to agree. I feel like if, coming out of this, once inflation and rates kind of go hand in hand. And once inflation comes down, typically rates come down. So,
Right.
I mean, obviously there's no guarantees in life and we don't 100% know, but you hit on something that I think is pretty interesting a few minutes ago. Like you said, if you're retiring and you've always wanted to do this, you're not going to.
That's not stopping you.
Right. You're going to move forward with your life's events, right?
If you're moving from one of the other tri-state areas, just simply coming to Delaware, you're going to pay a lot less in taxes. So a lot of people look at it that way. Like that first year, I might be paying a higher monthly payment, but my if I stay in Jersey, I'm out 20 grand.
Yeah.
So that's the age-old cry that I hear from at least people moving to Delaware. Ocean City is more about, hey, we can buy beachfront property here, and the taxes they don't get you too bad. They have the municipality where they pick up your trash in Ocean City. So when you really think about, if you're paying $3,500 a year for a condo, and they pick your trash up, and you have the beach right there, like that's very doable for most people.
Yeah. Everybody's perspective is different, but if you're coming from a real high,
If you're coming from,
the Northeast a little bit more.
Northeast, yeah.
So with that, what would this? So inventory is super tight. If you've got a seller that's coming on the market this spring versus last spring, you mentioned that they still could experience multiple offers. What kind of pricing strategy what are those pricing conversations like that you're having with your sellers right now?
So I'm going to take your line. You gotta juice it up a little bit. So the price, this isn't last year where you can say we're going to go 20 over where it should be, and then somebody's going to. So I keep saying last year. It's more than last year now. But during the COVID crazies, that was, hey, whatever we listed on for, we're probably going to get it. That's come and gone. So you got to look at the affordability because the rate is higher. What's the monthly payment? If you were paying 17 a year and a half ago, and now you go and run the numbers again, you're paying 3,500. That changes a lot of people's, mentality on it. So what I say to the sellers is you got to have a little bit of a juice. Let's price it at fair market value, and we'll probably get it. If you try to do the COVID number, that's the people that you're seeing chasing the ball down the hill now because they went too high. Then they're playing the game against the days on market because all the consumers now are educated with all the Zillow and Realtor.com. You can go on and see, this property's been on for 73 days.
Yeah.
And in a normal market, that's not a ton of time. But
when
they see that now and then they're going off of the COVID numbers, it didn't sell in 3 days, so something must be wrong with it. Don't want to do that. So we have a place coming soon, and we priced it just under where it should be, in hopes that we just get, hey, the buyers are going to come out, and we might even get a multiple offer situation, just because we priced it with a little juice.
Right. And I think that's so smart. It's tough for a seller sometimes to kind of conceptualize it, but it's so smart because I think for us as real estate agents, what we want to give our sellers is options, right? It's better to have options than to be backed into a corner with one, right? But if you got 3 or 4 to choose from, then you can maybe remove that home inspection from it. You can negotiate, remove the inspection. You might find one that's cash. But if you price it too high, then you might not get all those opportunities.
Right.
So
if you're going after the needle in the haystack buyer, which we call it, right? That's tough right now. So, price it fair market value, get people in the door, and it'll sell.
Right. You'll be successful. Great, great. So obviously it's an interesting market. Obviously you've had a great run here. So we kind of gave the history of your last couple of years here in the business and your growth. Let me ask you this: like, what's your aspiration? I mean, in the next couple of years here, how do you see your business transitioning? Is it just going from less buyers to more sellers? Is it less company leads to more sphere of influence? Is it continuing with your lovely wife to kind of grow your little team together? What do you see?
So I'm hoping, and my wife might have different plans, but I'm hoping that she will continue because she's a very integral part she does all my marketing. If you get a card saying, happy anniversary in your home, I was part of it, but she wrote it because her handwriting's good. And she's actually learned a lot with the MLS and how to do things on there quickly. So that's where I see myself, is maybe having a partnership with her. I want to own property. Mm-hmm. So practice what you preach.
Right.
Trying to own 30 properties. That's my goal in life. So I better start getting them soon.
You got to buy.
That's where I see myself, is maybe sinking more into like the seller role and dealing with my sphere of influence and all my clients, but also owning property. So I'm kind of doing a little property management as well as working with some sellers and buyers, but
got it.
I'm happy. So it's like, hey, keep it coming the way it is now. And there's no complaints, right? So, but the goal would be to start owning some property.
That's awesome.
Other than our home, which we bought years ago, and our equity is great. So that's my idea, is to kind of leverage some of that equity into another property and snowball from that point.
Great, great. Well, I think the quote of the day that I got from you here, Phil, is every day is a school day. And if you can approach life and this real estate business with not a closed mind, but more of an open mind, that you're going to learn something new every single day, or you have the ability to learn something new every day, that's going to certainly help you, I think, with your continuation of your growth. So I'm going to use that quote and take it with me here. But really appreciate you stopping by here today, and
having me.
We'll have you back here and give us another update as you continue to grow. But thanks again, and thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode here of our podcast. If you like this information, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends. And we look forward to bringing you more content as we move forward here into the spring market. So we'll see you again next week. Thanks again.